Hey folks, Five Stack here. It has been a minute since I last posted. I think I posted a video in July, and I've been meaning to post some, but you know it takes a long time to process when you do a through hike. And so since I completed my through hike last June, I've been doing just that. And so I hope to post some videos about that post trail stuff. But today, it is chilly here in Atlanta, Georgia. It's going to be in the 20s tonight, and up in the Georgia mountains at the higher elevations, it will be down in the teens. So I thought, since it's on into early December now, it would be a good time to post a video on cold weather backpacking, and more specifically, some of the tips that I found to be useful based on my experience starting in January of last year. Is anybody still there? So I'm talking about winter backpacking, and I'm going to have about 6 tips that I'm going to share with you guys. And let me put a little context to that. I envision my audience is doing like I did last year. Maybe they're starting a through hike or a session hike on the Appalachian Trail for the most part, and starting in the south. So if you want to do winter backpacking in New Hampshire, this is not the place to get advice on that. But I did start in January last year, ran into some cold weather. I think the coldest morning was 5 degrees, and I didn't die. So I must have some expertise, and so that's what I'd like to share with you guys. Here in the south in North Georgia and on into North Carolina, it can get below zero. When it does, it doesn't usually stay below zero very long. And so yeah, you can have some fairly serious cold weather conditions, and also I'm actually more afraid of rainy weather that's not quite so cold. So if you have wind and rain in the 50s, that could be, in my mind, a lot more dangerous than say snow in the 20s. So with that context, let's jump into my tips for hiking the Appalachian Trail, no matter what way you choose to hike it. But if you're hiking in the winter, hopefully some of these will be useful for you. So tip number 1, don't go, right? If you're out for a week and you know there's a forecast of really bad weather, and I know what you're thinking, that okay, I'm already through hiking, so I already left. But there are many opportunities to hole up somewhere. You can hole up in a shelter and keep out of the rain and some of the wind, and maybe have a fire. You could hole up in a town in a hostel. So consider that option, and it's something that I did. I was going into the Smokies, and the forecast was horrible. So I waited 5 days. I went home back to Atlanta, and even in the dead of winter, chances are those really bad winter conditions that could be life-threatening are not going to be long in duration. So always consider that as an option. You may not want to hike that day. Tip number 2, there are some things that I brought that I found particularly useful. So I'd like to go over what those things are. And I'm not talking about, the clothes you bring and the sleeping bag. I mean, I assume everybody knows to bring more warm stuff. But there's some things that I brought that I would definitely bring again. And I really advocate bringing those things. So first thing is this balaclava. You want to be able to keep all your skin covered. So you can put this up, pull your hat down. And the other thing about this is, as you're walking along, really only putting this over your mouth and actually having something to breathe into, and then breathe in that warm air, really made a big difference. So I would bring this again, and if I wasn't using it, I would probably use it to wipe down my tent, use it like a rag. So it's got dual purpose.
Hi, David.
Hello.
What you doing?
I'm doing a video.
What's it on?
It's on tips for cold weather hiking.
Oh. My tip is don't go.
Don't go. Yeah. Yep. The next thing I brought that I would bring again is waterproof socks, particularly for walking in snow. And you can get sealskin. I'm sure there's other brands. You can get them that come up in different heights. I had like a mid-length waterproof sock, and nothing is going to keep your feet dry forever. But they were effective in delaying how long it took for my feet to get wet. The next item I brought and I bring again, down pants. I didn't keep them the whole time and got rid of them, but I never wore these while I was hiking. They would get too hot. But the minute you stop hiking when it's really cold, it's amazing how quickly you get cold. And you get to camp and you put these on, and what's nice is you wear them around, right? You can do your chores, and I really found these to be comfortable. And you can also sleep in them. So let's say you have a 20-degree bag and you're worried about whether or not there's going to be some nights that will be too cold for that 20-degree bag. If you know you have some down pants, you got a little extra cushion. You don't need them, they make a great pillow. Next item I really liked, I bring again, are these gloves. These are fleece gloves. I like them because you can get your fingers out, but you can quickly get them back into the warmth of the glove. So, because taking off your gloves takes time, and sometimes it's hard to get your gloves back on. What you can also do is, if you think it's going to be really cold, bring a couple of these packets of these hand warmers. You can put one in each side of your glove. There's actually two in this pack. And I was surprised. I didn't think these were worth too much, but they would last all day. And I only used them a few times. It was only that cold a few times. But I tell you what, getting up in the morning, you crack these open. They take about 20 minutes to heat up. And you put them in your gloves, and it is quite nice. Also with the gloves, I have these rain covers, and I'm actually, they were hard to keep track of and hard to put on. I'm actually going to try and modify these gloves and somehow attach them to these gloves and be able to stow them. So if it rains, I can slip them over the whole apparatus here. And so that's a work in progress. Hello, kitty. The next thing is something that I actually didn't bring, and that is a Nalgene bottle. Now, this isn't Nalgene, but they make these Nalgene bottles in various sizes. And what you can do with those bottles is put boiling water in them, and then close them up. They can take the hot water and shove them in the bottom of your sleeping bag. So there was never a night where I really needed that, but if I thought I was really on the edge and I was worried about not having good enough gear for the conditions that presented themselves, I might want to have a Nalgene bottle, which this is not, and be able to have that option to heat water and put it in my sleeping bag. The last item under tip number 2, in terms of gear that I brought and I bring again, I started out with this Z-Pack lightweight jacket. It weighs probably 6 or 8 ounces. It's really light, and it was okay until it got actually warmer. And by warmer, I mean it started getting into the the 30s and 40s and 50s. When it would rain, I found that this jacket was not sufficient. And tell you what, a cold rain is worse than anything. So I went to a heavier duty jacket, and there are different jackets, but this is it's heavier. And it will take a lot longer to wet out. And like I said, everything wets out. So if they tell you something that you're looking at doesn't wet out, they're not giving you the real story. But I used this jacket the rest of the way, and by the time I was up in New England, I was really past the whites. I was down to this jacket, and by then it was on into early June, late May, I guess. And I had this jacket and one more long sleeve item, and that was enough. So that's tip number 2. And just so you know, my base weight was about 22 or 23 pounds. So I was carrying about 5 pounds of what I consider winter gear. So just, you know, whether it's a heavy sleeping bag or, you know, the stuff I'm describing. And I eventually got rid of most of that stuff as I went on. The heaviest pack I had was, I think, about 33 pounds. And I was set up with 5 days of food, and that includes a liter of water. So that's not base weight. So my base weight was about 22 pounds. Tip number 3, you got to keep certain things warm. Now winter backpacking, there's a lot more to think about, and so you have first thing, fuel. This stuff, you know, I've heard in the past that it doesn't work in a stove when it's 20 degrees or lower. I use this thing at about 8 degrees, and it worked okay. And let me show you how I did it. Now I got along the way a jet boil, and this thing works a little bit better at lower temperature, but it's way more fuel efficient. And that's another thing. You use a lot of fuel in cold temperatures. But once I got to the warm weather, a canister would last you know, a good 6-7 days. When I first started, and before I got the jet boil, I was going through one of these in 2 or 3 days. So what you do when you get to camp, let's say you're setting up for dinner and you're going to cook, you just shove it down the jacket, put it in your pocket, you start warming it up. And so once it's got a little warmth to it, you fire it up right away, and you can boil a half liter of water and without too much trouble. Another item to keep warm is your water. If it's cold enough, well, at night it'll freeze, so you need to put it in your sleeping bag. Make sure it's on tight. In the day, if it's cold, there were days where the high was 15 or 20 degrees. You take this and you just shove it down with your other stuff that you need to keep warm, and that's how you. And the belt on your backpack will keep that in place. So make sure your jacket's tucked under the belt. The last thing that you need to keep warm is the water filter. So this is a Katadyn filter. I use this part of the time. I used also the Sawyer Squeeze, and I'm going to recommend this one for when you have freezing weather, especially during the day. And the reason is it's really easy to, so you filter your water, put it in the bottle, you put it back here, you screw it on, and this is watertight, assuming you screw it on right. And so this you can put right in your pocket of your down jacket or whatever jacket you're wearing. I can even put it in my pants pocket. It's easy to put this in my sleeping bag at night. The Sawyer Squeeze, you can do that too, but you need to put the filter in a bag, and it's just a little harder to keep track of. If you're walking along with this in your pocket, it's easier to grab. And so much of these, especially in the winter, these things you can do are about simplicity, reducing the number of steps. And so I think having the Katadyn in freezing temperatures works better, just because this folds down to a small thing and you can stow it in a warm place. Tip number 4, and I feel pretty strongly about this one. Don't slack pack. So slack packing, most of y'all know, it's when on those days where you meet somebody or you're with somebody and they can carry your gear and meet you at the end of the day, and presumably you go back to a warm place to spend the night. So it's kind of a luxury that sometimes you can do on the trail, and it's nice on cold nights because you're maybe sleeping in a warm bed. But consider this: when you're walking along and it's 8 degrees out, and the worst case happens, and I refer to this as my reasonable worst case scenario, and it's later in the day, but you're maybe 3 or 4 miles from your destination, and you break your ankle. So there you are, stuck for the day, and it could be a long time before people can get to you. And what do you have in your backpack? Do you have enough to survive the night? And so when it's cold, you really need, even though you can carry less weight when you're slack packing, you really need to have your warm weather gear. You in your mind, you need to know what the low is going to be that night, and make sure that if the worst case happens and you're immobile, that you have the right kind of gear to get you through the night. Otherwise, that could, a simple, what might be an injury that would put you out of commission, could endanger your life. Tip number 5, have an exit strategy. Know your roads, the points of egress. That's very important for hiking in the winter. Also know that, also have a way to call for help. Have an emergency beacon that you can use. I won't get into what those options are, or at the very least, somebody that's keeping track of you and knows where you are at all times. Very important. The margin of error in the winter months is a lot less. Tip number 6, and my last tip that I want to share, is practice. You want to go out there and do at least a few nights on cold nights and start to get used to your gear, know what to expect, get into the routine. So when you're out there for days or weeks or months at a time, you aren't caught off guard by what some cold weather can bring. So if you want to get out for a night, get out for a weekend, or do a session hike, go for a week. I highly recommend, especially for winter backpacking, that you go out and practice these things. So I hope these tips have been useful. There's so many more things about winter backpacking that are relevant, and so I didn't mean to try to cover all those things, but these are things that I found relevant on my thru hike that I completed this year in 2024. And oh man, I keep hearing videos already about people preparing for 2025, and I am excited for you. So prepare well, and I hope you have a wonderful thru hike. And I expect I'll do a few more videos on post-trail stuff and how I'm doing, and how I feel about how I did my hike. And I may incorporate that into a hike of the Bartram Trail and also the Foothills Trail. I'm thinking about doing both of those trails consecutively in the winter. So that may be coming soon.